When Hyundai first announced the N division, people were skeptical. Many thought that it was a risky move from the brand, but they hired Albert Biermann, who was the ex-chief engineer for BMW's M division, and started pumping out products like the i30N, the Veloster N, then the i20N, and eventually the Elantra N and the Kona N, which all made headlines because of how good they are. People were shocked at how crazy this car is and how competitive it is for much cheaper compared to a Civic Type R. People also really liked how the exhaust sounds, which I do too. Then more recently, they released the Ioniq 5N, which also made major headlines, with people claiming it as the best electric sports car so far. Today I have the 2024 facelift Elantra N in Performance Blue. This is the 6-speed manual version. We're gonna go over some of the cool things about it, some of the good things about it, a lot of the great things about it, and then we're gonna go over some quirks about it as well. Let's get started. Alright, let's start off with the specs. Under the hood, you'll get a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine that produces 276 horsepower and 289 pound-feet of torque. It has a compression ratio of 9.5 to 1 and is a squared setup, meaning that both the bore and the stroke are 86 millimeters. Generally speaking, if an engine has more stroke, it produces more torque, and if an engine has more bore, it produces more power and can rev higher. Power is routed through either a 6-speed manual transmission or an 8-speed dual-clutch wet-type transmission. Power goes to only the front wheels, of course, and it has an electronically limited slip differential. If you do select the DCT version, you actually get 10 more horsepower if you use the N-Grin shift mode. In terms of wheels and suspension setup, you get a set of 19 by 8-inch black alloy rims paired with two 45/35 R19 Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. In the front, you get a pair of McPherson strut, and in the rear, you get a multi-link setup. The Elantra N features 3-stage adaptive dampers. As for curb weight, the manual version comes in at 1480 kilos, which is right around 3,300 pounds. In terms of looks and design, you either love it or you hate it, and I love it because for the refreshed model, I really like the new rims, and also I really like the front fascia. And to top it all off, this Performance Blue just really suits the car very, very nicely. But the best part about the car is easily how the exhaust sounds, so let's hear it. Oh, I just love how this sounds and feels, especially when you're in first gear and you're slapping the limiter, the wheels are spinning, and the exhaust starts popping. It's just such a great sensation. It feels fantastic. It's so much fun. Now there is quite a bit of wheel hop off the line, and there is also torque steer, which in my opinion makes this feel less refined than a Civic Type R. But I also think that this is precisely why this car is so great. It just feels more raw. It feels great. There's so much personality. It just... Oof. Oh man. There's so much emotion, there's so much character. I really, really like this car. It also handles excellent. Turn-ins are sharp, steering is responsive. The brakes also feel really good. It has tons of grip. The car feels extremely planted. The electronic limited slip differential just pulls you out of the corner so effortlessly. In a sense, it feels very similar to the one in the Civic Type R and the Integra Type S. Oh man, it is just a pity that there aren't more roads like this around where I can enjoy this car even more. Anyway, you probably already know how well this Elantra N drives. You've heard how good it handles and that it's basically just as fast on the track compared to a Civic Type R and an Integra Type S. So let's head back and then we'll talk a little bit about its quirks. The first one I want to talk about is Octane Learning. According to the manual, which I have right here, it says that for maximum performance driving, you can train the car to give you more boost as long as you're putting in premium fuel. How much more boost are we talking about? Well, normally you get 15-16 psi, and after learning you get 18-19 psi based on what the instrument cluster is showing me. And how do you do this learning sequence, you ask? There are two ways to do quick learning. The first way is to drive the car on the highway, use top gear between 109 kilometers an hour and 149 kilometers an hour for 5 minutes at constant speed. The second way is to repeat slow accelerations, 40 to 70% throttle, between 40 and 120 kilometers an hour, in fourth or fifth gear for 5 minutes or more. Now, simple enough, right? No, because the car itself doesn't show you any notifications once the Octane Learning sequence is completed, which means that you're just going to have to floor the car, see if you're reaching 18-19 psi. If not, you're just going to have to repeat the sequence again. Secondly, you have to do this for every fill up. If you want to do Octane Learning, if you want to do 18-19 psi, you're going to have to do this every time you fill up the car. To make things worse, the fuel tank is only about 47 liters, which feels really small for a performance car like this. Which brings me to the next weird thing, the fuel gauge and the fuel trip meter. I've noticed that the fuel gauge would sometimes drop really quickly in a short period of time, but other times it would go back up slightly. And then the trip meter for the Since refuel trip meter, it would reset on its own without actually filling up, which I find really weird because I've never experienced this with any other Hyundai vehicle before. If there are any Elantra N owners watching, can you chime in and see if you have the same experience with your car, with your fuel gauge going up and down randomly or not? Let me know. The next one is also software related. So a lot of owners have noticed that over time, the pops and bangs starts disappearing. Basically, the car would pop and crackle significantly less compared to when they first picked up the car. Some sort of weird software bug, and just so happened that this unit that I'm testing also had that issue. But don't worry, there is a quick fix. If you go back into your car, go into the infotainment and change the user profile to guest profile, all the pops and crackles come back and it restores the Elantra N back to its roaring glory. Really weird, but that's a quick fix for you there, something to note. Another fun fact is that when you're in N mode and you have all those pops and crackles, I noticed that it only comes out of the right exhaust, which, again, it's a little fun fact as well. Anyway, let's get on the road and wrap it up. What's great about this N is that when you're not pushing it to its limits and you're in comfort mode, the steering is lighter, the suspension is noticeably softer, the exhaust is also noticeably quieter. It just becomes such a good daily driver. You can also get great fuel economy out of this. I was able to manage about 7 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, which is pretty good. Now, of course, this is not perfect, and we've talked about some of its quirks and weirdnesses earlier. But considering that it is $12,000 or so cheaper than a Civic Type R, is this not a no-brainer option? Or are you worried about potentially the reliability? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.